G'day and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to talk about costochondritis and why your day-to-day sitting habits are potentially one of the most important things to navigate you through this dysfunction. Now, as I've spoken about on the channel a couple of times already, one of the most important things to cover with costochondritis is one of the hidden things that tends to cause costo, which for a lot of people is hidden dysfunction around the back. So if you're someone who is dealing with a bunch of soreness through the front of your chest in a lot of different ways, whether it's pressure, whether it's a sharp pain, ultimately it's a dysfunction of the joints of your rib cage at the front as the ribs attach into your sternum or somewhere along that. And if you know exactly where your sore spots tend to be, and you follow the course of the rib as it wraps all the way around, and remember the rib doesn't wrap horizontally around, it sort of wraps and curves up. So wherever you feel you are sore, here, for example, you might find that it's a little bit higher up where that dysfunction might be. But what we've spoken about on the channel before, and hopefully you've covered this already, is that if you take a ball and explore through the mid to upper back areas on the sides that you're having an issue with, if you lie down on the ground or lean up against the wall like it will in this instance, you may be fortunate enough to hit a spot and then feel a lot of your symptoms being reproduced. If you do, then clearly that is a connected part of this dysfunction. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this first is that as you're moving the ball up and down that spine, again, we're not rolling it, but if you find a spot that feels stiff, put some gentle pressure on that and get it to release, get it to give, move the ball up a little bit, move the ball down a little bit, move the ball out towards your shoulder blade a little bit more. Wherever you need to be around the back that you feel is stiff, tight, obviously tender or dysfunctional, and the spots that you find that you press on and release and it makes your symptoms feel better, there has to be a reason why those exact parts of your back have become the reason for that dysfunction in the first place. And what I find clinically is that when we're trying to understand why a certain part of your upper back has become stiff, tight, or dysfunctional and maybe expressing itself around the front in the form of costochondritis, is that generally we want to take a look at the things that you do most often to try and find clues as to why a tissue has become dysfunctional. And the reason why I've mentioned sitting posture as being really important with costo is that the majority of things that we do day to day are sitting based, but the postures and the shapes that you put your tissue into can be the thing that creates this dysfunction. So for example, if I'm quite stiff and tight on this left-hand shoulder blade down the bottom here, around about this level, what I would find, or what I would expect to find for most people, is there has to be a situation throughout the day where you might either be sort of hinging through that part of your back or dropping and rolling your shoulder enough on that side to create this excessive tension and loads through that area. What's important to really understand with costo, and any dysfunction to be fair, is that the moment that you notice it to begin with, it feels like the start of something, but in reality, it's not the start of something new. It's the end result of a process that's built up to that point. So unless you've been hit in a certain area or you've had some trauma to a certain area, it's very unlikely that your issues just magically came out of nowhere, where you were perfect one day and then suddenly dysfunctional in the next. Even though on the surface it can certainly feel that way, because you don't have symptoms until you have symptoms. But what we often find is if your symptoms begin here, and this is perfect, most people are on this journey where they may be getting closer and closer to symptoms, or they may just hover up and down underneath that line and never get there. But the point is that once you get there, you haven't started from perfect and gone straight up. You've more likely got to that point over a long period of time. And if we can get you to take a step back and say, right, the positions that I get into the most day to day are how I sit on the computer, how I sit when I'm driving the car, maybe how I sit when I'm doing arts and crafts or playing guitar, or if I'm sitting up in bed reading a book, or how I sit on the couch watching TV over night time after a hard day's work, or if I'm someone who stands more often but I'm leaning over a lot because I'm preparing food or I'm doing something in a certain shape. The point that I wanted to cover in this video is that costochondritis can be a really crappy thing to deal with. It's filled with a lot of misdirection. A lot of things that you feel may actually be the consequence of something else entirely. So it can be really hard for people to sort of really find their way through this minefield, to find some relief and some comfort without the necessary perspective to understand what this can be or what this tends to be for most people. So to cut a long story short, if you do have a ball or a set of balls that you can use to find those stiff, tight spots around the back, and you can successfully free those spots up, then obviously that can go a long way to helping your symptoms resolve and feel good. But if you're doing all that hard work, but you're not then taking note of what positions and shapes you're putting that part of your body into consistently throughout the day, it may be completely unrealistic for you to expect this to go away on its own without you trying to change those habits and improve those positions and those postures to open up the door for this to go away. Now, as I said in the previous couple of videos, I also have a costochondritis course, but more importantly, I just want to give you guys the ideas and the direction that you can hopefully find your way through your own to nail this really tricky and often frustrating condition. So please let me know in the comments down below whether you found that helpful. Let me know what position or shape that you think might be the one that you get into the most throughout the day. And remember, we're not talking about active, interesting things that you do. We're just talking about the most boring, stationary, sedentary positions, the consistency of those positions that are important, try and understand why a part of your body has become dysfunctional and then why it might be expressing itself around through the front. So if that was helpful, let me know in the comments down below. Please subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content, if you feel like you need this type of content. Hopefully I can provide you with a really great perspective on how to resolve that problem. Leave a like on the video. Check out the course. I'll leave a link in the description if you need to check that out as well. It goes through a bunch of things that I find really helpful for my patients clinically with Costo. But that being said, I genuinely hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.